I'm trying to recall when I first met you was at LA Tower back in the either late 60s or early 70s.
Goodness.
I worked. I didn't see you work too much.
I've known Larry since 1976. I worked for him at LA Tower.
I met Larry Supan about 3 years ago.
Jen and I have known you and your family for better part of 40 years.
It's been over 20 years since we first met you at the baseball field.
I'd met him when we were both going to air traffic control school in the Marine Corps.
I've known Larry for approximately 15 years or so.
I met Larry over the 4th of July weekend of 1976. And Larry and Kathy and the children moved in next door to me. It was my 50th birthday, and they moved in the day before.
Larry and I used to work at LAX for several year.
I worked with Larry Supan in the middle of the 1980s at Los Angeles Tower.
I met the family in '98 and through one son, and then had the opportunity again. I mean, every year a little bit I saw them, but really got to know them or go places with them in 2002.
I just wanted to say that you have really made our family full. He always was a good host.
There's a lot of people here. They're probably Jeff's friends because I don't think you could pay. I know you didn't have this many friends.
One of my best memories of Larry is he'd go home on a fam trip to Philadelphia and then come back in the morning, and somewhere on the way to the airport in Philly, between Chester and the airport, he'd pick up hoagies in his briefcase and then bring them home and come up to the tower and drop them off. And so we would have fresh hoagies from Philadelphia by noon that morning in LA, and it's pretty darn good.
It was up at St. Bernardine's Church, and I was asked to cook with Larry in the kitchen, and it was something that I was trained to do, but it was something that I hadn't done in a long time. Larry had a truly infectious way about him. Even though I really didn't want to return to the kitchen, I really enjoyed Larry's company.
I think Larry probably had the best time after he retired from the FAA, and he then took on a whole bunch of different careers. I think at one time he was selling Infinities, selling cars, and he enjoyed that. In fact, I think he, as I remember, that was the time we actually bought an Infinity, and he was, because he told us all about the car, and he had, when he was working for Infinity, he went up to the racetrack and they let him zip around the racetrack with his high-performance Infinity car, doing like 120, 130 miles per hour around this racetrack.
I came back and I started to cook with him, and for the first time in 11 years, I really enjoyed doing something that in the beginning I enjoyed doing and lost the passion for, and Larry helped me to get that passion back.
He liked his variety of challenges and was always doing something interesting around the house. There wasn't any kind of challenge he wouldn't take on. Did some fabulous work in his gardens.
I wanted to thank you for the last couple of years for bringing that passion back to me. It takes a good friend and a good man, and I believe you're both, and that helped me tremendously.
I admire his wisdom. Larry is a very wise man. I have definitely over my years gone to him or went to him for advice, and he's kind of a tell it like it is kind of person, but I admire that for him, and I admire his wisdom most of all.
I remember visiting one time, and I see a big hole in the wall where the fireplace used to be, and he just started out rebuilding it. And in a short period of time, he had it really done.
I will never forget, ever forget the day that you came into the tower and cornered me and you said, looked me in the eye and said, Kathy's pregnant. It was 10 years after your last child, and I think that was, she was pregnant with Jeff at that time. And the impression you gave me from the look on your face will be forever in my mind.
I want to thank you for the chili recipe, and yes, it was Our Lady of Lourdes Men's Club. This week I won with your recipe the chili cook-off, and so that's why I brought you the plaque this evening, is so you could either put it up in the restaurant or put it up in your house.
My
question for you though is, what's the difference between minced onions and diced onions? Is there a subtle difference? Because whatever I did this time to the chili made such a difference for Jim.
We're in the Marine Corps, and the training center was at Olathe, Kansas, and he was ahead of me in the training cycle. But we met there. That was where we first met in 1956.
I remember that Jeff Tittle and I would go out for lunch, and we'd be gone for maybe an hour.
Don't tell this story. Don't tell this story.
And when we got back,
Don't listen.
Larry would be upset because we took so long, because it was only supposed to be in half an hour. So we decided we'd just take him along with us, and then we could spend an hour without anybody getting on us.
Gosh, I can't remember the first time I met him. All I remember is my sister just reminding me that don't be scared by Larry. He comes off pretty strong and aggressive, so you just stand your ground.
As our careers would cross, where he was assigned to a Marine base at Quantico, Virginia, and 2 months later, I went to the same base. But the meeting was one where he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Pennsylvania." He said, "Well, I'm from Pennsylvania." And we started on that basis our friendship.
When I first met Larry, I was a little intimidated, but then I realized I had some wit in me, so I just give it right back to him when he was witty or sarcastic with me, and we broke the ice that way.
I remember sitting around all those baseball games with a scorebook being kept so diligently, and having the pleasure of watching the boys grow up to become the wonderful men that they are. Jeff's truly a reflection of you and Kathleen and your family, and so we feel privileged and blessed to know you.
I was so happy when Kathleen met you, because I loved the way you loved her. And I was only 11 years old, and it was such a good experience for me, being so young, seeing you love my sister so dearly and her loving you. I didn't have words for, as a child anyway, I didn't have words for it. I just knew it was a love story that I would want to be involved in and watch.
Through the years, it was wonderful watching him. He's very, very handy and did lots of beautiful things. And I had a husband who never finished anything, so watching Larry was like, oh my goodness, sometimes I wish he lived here.
Did he make meals at that time period, or?
Oh yes, he made tons of meals.
Okay.
But he made pizza.
The most memorable was that Mexican dinner that you cooked at our house, and we had margaritas, and it took John and I half the next day to clean the kitchen.
I remember making the
I
pizza
love
with
that
olives
pizza.
and
Yes. That was
I don't know what else he put on it.
A cook, yes. All his relatives have, definitely. I've eaten his food.
He always made such wonderful food.
He cooked a meal for me, and we were invited for dinner, and he started to cook when we walked in.
Anytime we went over there, he'd always be ginning up something special at lunchtime. He'd make some fabulous dish for my wife and I to try out.
The things I remember about you is definitely your cooking.
And I was amazed that he waited till we got there to do his cooking. Because when I had company, I always tried to have everything done before they got there.
I met Larry when I married Mike, and he's a gourmet cook for fun, and he's fabulous. He's a fabulous cook, but he's very intimidating to have over to dinner, because you have to do your best, and he's in the kitchen checking everything, and he knows his stuff.
And he made this fantastic soup, and I remember telling him that I loved this soup. It might have been some kind of tomato-based soup, and I've never had it since.
Just like I keep hearing from everybody else that's been interviewed, his cooking. He used to cook for me in the break room and have me relieved when my linguine and clams were ready, and I get to go down in the break room and eat wonderful meals.
And at the same dinner, he made this fantastic salad with this dressing that was phenomenal, and I keep asking him to make it for me, but he never does.
He has made us many, many delicious meals.
Oh my goodness.
I could not pick one.
And he has fed us royally this past week. I think we have all gained 5 pounds.
The suggestion of what meal was the best, they're all tremendous.
We would have Chinese cook night in the control tower. That got to be a little bit more interesting because they made spicy food. Benny Lampton make his spicy chicken stir fry in the tower, smelled wonderful, and Larry be frying egg rolls with his special hot mustard that he had to mix. I remember one evening he made that egg roll for me and put mustard on it, and I got the first one out of the batch, and I was the one working the South Tower frequency, and I was rather busy, but I had a chance to take a bite, and I put a little bit too much mustard. And I couldn't talk. I had airplanes on the ground, I had airplanes in the air, and I couldn't even talk. It's like, Larry, what are you doing to me? You're my boss, and I can't even talk. It was a lot of fun.
Everybody here is talking about how you cook for them. I don't remember you cooking for me.
I don't think
and that,
so.
when you come to my house, the first thing you do is go to the cabinet and get out the wheat thins. And we normally go out to dinner.
My husband